Hello, my name is Chewy Chong. I'm the developer evangelist for Microsoft Singapore. We have a guest here today who is going to be a PhD soon in databases. Wee Hyong,
yes.
You are the what?
I'm the MVP for SQL Server.
MVP for SQL Server for
correct.
Singapore, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So you got quite an interesting topic to talk about today.
Oh, yes.
LINQ.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So yeah, tell us a little about LINQ.
LINQ itself stands for Language Integrated Query.
Yeah.
In fact, how do you use LINQ? And what is LINQ? And that's what we're going to discuss today. So first thing, let's just take a look at right now, right? If you were to query a database, you were to write an application to query the database, how will you go about doing that?
Well, wouldn't you just use ADO?
Yes, so when you use ADO, what will you do? It's likely that you're going to compose a string,
right?
Which represents your SQL statement, which is in quotes.
Yeah.
And then after which you're going to maybe create a SQL command,
right?
Pass it to the SQL command.
Yeah.
And then what happens? What happened after that?
So you pass it and the database goes and go do something, right? And pass you back the result.
Yes.
Wraps in a data set of some sort, and you can programmatically write against it.
Yes.
Right.
So if you look at it, right, suppose you want to test your SQL statement,
right?
Most likely, you'll make use of either something like Enterprise Manager,
right?
In which you pass in your query,
right?
And then you make sure that your SQL is syntax okay and stuff like that,
right?
Before you bring it back into application and start adding in your parameters,
right?
And that's it, right? But
right.
I guess all this while, one of the dreams that most developers have,
right, is
you hope that within Visual Studio itself, whether it's 203 or 205, you hope that IntelliSense will work.
Right.
Suppose if you have a table with several columns, when you do a dot, you could see the column names.
Right.
At the same time, you hope that when you compile, you will have compile time check of the types to make sure that things are working fine and stuff like that.
Right.
So all this while, I think most of us dream of having the query.
Right.
In this case, the query could be SQL within the language itself.
Right.
It could be a language like C#, it could be a language like VBNet and stuff like that. So that's our dream.
Right.
Essentially, LINQ makes your dream come true in that aspect.
So that's a good point, because currently in like the way we do programming for databases, right? You still have the square brackets. You go through, you know the name of the column you may want to go to, or you actually get the actual application to create a data set, which is a abstract representation of this stuff, right? So you're saying LINQ will allow you to directly get access to that, right?
Yes, and much more than that. If you look at the entire LINQ framework itself,
right,
it consists of several parts.
Right.
So the first part is basically a language integrated query.
Right.
Imagine the ability of being able to express SQL-like kind of syntax within your C# or VB.
Right.
At the same time, imagine that you can even define classes,
right,
and then persist these classes as though it's a persistent object to a relational database, and somehow allow the language itself to take care of things like tracking changes and stuff like that.
Because you have to do this all manually.
Yes, previously you have to do it manually, but right now with LINQ, in fact what it does is that given the object, it will translate whatever objects that you have, and persist it by doing the translation to SQL automatically for you.
All right. When we do it now, you use data adapters, right? You just have to go through the select, updates, all that stuff.
Yes, that's right.
But you're saying LINQ will be able to not only do all that for you, but also be able to update stuff for you too.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
So if you look at the whole LINQ framework itself, they have LINQ to objects. Essentially, LINQ to object means that if you were to define objects within any of the .NET language, right now it's only C# and VB, you can then do a query against this collection of objects. Then you have LINQ to entities. And what LINQ to entity does is that it allows you again to define classes and persist these classes, and it does it for you automatically, which is what I shared with you earlier, which is basically there's a mapping done, and this mapping is done for you automatically. On top of this, they have LINQ to SQL. Previously, within the community, you will know it as DLINQ. And essentially what LINQ to SQL does is, again, it does automatic translation for you, which we'll see in the demo later. At the same time, you also have LINQ to XML, previously known as XLINQ. So imagine one unified kind of query framework which allows you to access a variety of data sources, and you no longer have to say, oh, today I learned XPath, XQuery for XML, I learned SQL for relational kind of databases, and some other weird query languages for some other kind of data sources. So now it's a unified layer, and you can do it within your language. On top of this, you can get compile time checks, and you also get IntelliSense support.
Yes, I like that IntelliSense support.
Yes.
Okay, now that makes sense. Sorry, so that begs the question, what's going to happen ADO? Okay,
in fact, in August this year, if I'm not wrong, you can already download this CTP for ADO.NET VNix or version Nix of ADO.NET. And within this ADO.NET version Nix, you will be able to see things like link to entities in action. Essentially, what it means is that you could define your classes, your business entities, and so that gives you the kind of level of semantics that you can operate on.
Okay.
And not worry about how it translates to SQL.
Okay.
And then let ADO.NET version Nix to do the mapping for you via what we call mapping providers.
Okay.
And then once that is done, this gets translated to the all done for you automatically.
All right. So ADO is still the way .NET or your application will connect to database, but LINQ just makes it easier.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so LINQ is not a replacement thing, but just basically an easier way for ADO to integrate.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So ADO still connects to the database. You can still use, if you want to go through and generate those data sets like automatically through Visual Studio, you can still do that.
Yes.
Or you can just use LINQ to go through and connect to that data.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah. In fact, with LINQ, you could still have your data sets.
Yeah.
But right now, because the query is within the language itself,
right.
You can use LINQ or the query expression that is available in LINQ to query data set using SQL-like syntax.
Okay.
And that's quite cool.
Okay. You got a demo for us?
Yes. So maybe let's see the first demo.
Okay, that sounds good.
The first thing that we're going to do, I'm going to show you LINQ, using LINQ to query, basically using LINQ to query an array.
Okay.
Why is that interesting? Previously, when you want to query an array,
right,
it's likely you'll make use of the IEnumeral kind of interface,
right,
and then you'll do a for each over each element and then print it out.
Okay.
I'm going to show you how to do it the LINQ way.
Okay.
And see whether you like the kind of feel to it.
Yeah, let's take a look at it.
Right. So the first thing that we can do here is let's declare an array.
Okay.
And let's call this array numbers.
Okay.
Okay, so let's call this a numbers array.
Okay.
Okay, and then let's have several numbers, 6 maybe. What is your favorite number?
8. Come on.
So we have
Chinese 8. Here, right?
Yeah, so we have 8, and maybe let's have a few more. So maybe what else is there?
Okay, let's say I like the number 1. It's the loneliest number right here.
Okay, so let's have 1 and maybe bigger numbers like 100.
Okay.
Maybe 80 and more 8s.
Okay.
So right now what we have here on this screen, right? If you can see, right?
Yeah.
Is an array.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you were to follow the .NET framework closely, you will know that this array itself implements the IEnumerable interface.
Okay.
Okay, and what LINQ does is that if you look at the series of namespaces which are import,
right,
okay, or use, one of the things that you'll notice here is system.query.
Yeah.
Okay, and what system.query does is that it allows you to extend an existing type, for example, an int, or an array of int, which implements the IEnumerable interface. Okay. And it provides you with what we call extension methods. Okay. And basically, extension methods is a new feature in C# 3.0, okay, and which allows you to extend or add methods to existing types. In this case, it's IEnumerable. Okay. And therefore, by importing this system.query namespace, okay, what we have essentially done is that given an array, a normal array like this, we are now able to express queries on top of the array, something that we can never do before.
Okay, so what you're saying here is that you're essentially allowing that the array be queryable.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so basically
queryable in an SQL-like way. At first, it might not seem that impressive at this moment in time, but
obviously we're using 7 arrays.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right. So anything you can represent in memory in in a .NET language.
Yes.
What you're saying here is you're able to make it queryable like it was a database.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
I got it. Okay.
So now that we have this array, the console.read key is just to break it for a while. Okay. The next thing that we want to do here is I want to show you the LINQ expression. Okay. So they make use of this thing called var. Okay. Var is essentially an interesting syntax because what it does is it declares a local variable. Okay. Without known type yet. Okay. And the type is inferred. Okay. Based on the shape of the queries. Okay. Or whatever results that the queries return. Okay. Okay. So this is where LINQ is going to start.
Okay. That kind of hurts my brain there. Okay.
So first thing we're going to do is that we're going to say where are we going to pull this data from.
Okay.
In this case, it's an array of integers. So we say from S.
Okay.
S is just a placeholder in number array.
Ah.
So if you realize, right, in SQL, right,
you're writing, that's the query right there.
Yes, that's the query. We've not finished yet.
Okay.
But if you realize in SQL, the flow is really select from where.
Yeah.
One of the things in SQL which some folks don't like is that the scope of select is really established only after you do the from and the where. Okay,
makes sense.
Yeah. So the natural flow is really to specify where you get the data from.
Okay.
Before you even project what you want. And this is what LINQ has.
Okay.
In fact, this is not a new syntax. They didn't invent it from scratch.
Okay.
There's a corresponding video.
Okay.
Done by the guys behind C#, which explains that this is not something they invented out of thin air.
Okay, that's a Channel 9 video, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So in a second, we'll put the link on the bottom of the screen.
Sure.
So you guys can go through and go to it, right?
Sure. And you realize that in a language like XQuery, essentially this is what you're doing also. You specify where you're getting things from.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like from the grocery store, I want to get milk.
Yeah, that's correct.
Because beforehand, you have to write in the SQL way. You have to write, I'm getting milk from the grocery store.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay.
So now that we know where we're going to get the data from, the next thing that we might want to do is that we say we want to do a where.
Okay.
And in this case, maybe we are just out of this arrays of integers, we are just want all those even integers.
Okay, got it.
So let's say we have where s mod 2 equals 0.
Okay.
So now that we specify a condition, which is a filtering condition, we can now select.
Gotcha.
So since s is a placeholder, what s is really representing is each of the individual elements in the array.
Okay.
I can now do a select s.
Okay, so that's what you're saying initially in the conversation. It's just the I enumerable thing.
Yes, that's
so
correct.
that's why each enumeration is the S.
Yes, that's correct.
I gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
And once you are that, let's iterate using a familiar for each expression.
Okay.
So again, you can say for each var item in Q,
Yep.
Q is the query,
Yep.
and Q is declared as a var Q, which means it's a local variable. What is Q, what is the type of Q, is inferred by the result of the expression, the query expression that you see here.
Okay.
And now we can just do a console.writeLine. And item.
Okay.
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 Now once I run this, okay, we miss code.
Got it.
Okay, once I run this, you will see all the even numbers coming up.
Okay, the coolest thing is the fact that query statement wasn't like in quotes. You didn't have to go through and execute it. So that's what you mean by it is actually run. It's compile time. So it's built into the language.
Yes, that's correct.
Hence, language integrated query.
Yes, that's correct.
I gotcha.
So there's multiple ways in which you can query. Right now, what we are using here is known as you are querying or using LINQ by query expressions.
Okay.
Remember just now we talked about using this system.query namespace and that it extends an existing method, in this case the IEnumerer, with additional methods.
Okay.
So there's another way of querying it. So let me show you the other way.
Okay.
So let me comment this out. Okay. The other way of querying this, since we are going to invoke methods, and since we have already extend the basic array with methods, additional methods, we can now do a var q, and then we can now do a numbers array, which is where you're getting the things from. And you can say where. Okay. And now whatever that you specify within this where clause, essentially is what we call a lambda expression or lambda function. And what it does is that it specifies that again you see this familiar s. You can name it anything. It's just a placeholder. And say that the ultimate result of this filter is basically again we want s mod 2 equals 0. And once I'm done with this, essentially I'm done.
Okay. So what is the equal and the little the greater than sign?
This is equals. Okay. So what this means is that you declare a placeholder s. And this is what is the definition of s. And therefore, in order for this expression to be valid, it will be evaluated with respect to all of this. And only if they meet the condition on the right hand side, then it is valid. And this way of expressing, as I mentioned, is known as lambda expressions. And it's very commonly used in functional languages. use languages like Scheme or even Lisp or Haskell, this is how it's expressed.
Okay, I got you. So there's two different ways of doing
yes.
it. That first way you showed was just kind of SQL-like, right? And the second way is just...
yes.
Okay, I got you.
So again, you get the same results.
Okay, I got you.
Okay. So there's two ways for those from the SQL camp or those who have been working in relational database for a long time. They will prefer the query expression.
Okay. Now, out of curiosity, the query expression, the one you just highlight there, can you still write it the old school way? Select S from where?
Oh, okay. Okay. This query expression that you see here. You can't.
Okay.
And Anders in his video explained why you need to start with flow.
Okay.
To start with from. Before I move on to where. And the reason is because you need to the correct flow for most query languages is you have to tell me where you're getting the data from.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
In addition, if you were to specify the from, and since you know where you're getting the data from, when you do s.something, in the final version of LINQ, you will have IntelliSense built in, and now you can infer what are the fields that are related to it. Right now you can't do it because this is just from main CTP.
Okay, I gotcha. I gotcha. Okay, makes good sense.
And another interesting demo that I'm going to show you. Okay, let me just take this out.
So you can download the May CTP and play with it, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, this is the May 2006 version of LINQ.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, so let me remove this. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you is a cool demo. It shows you even more features of LINQ. Let's say, for example, right now, right, if I want you to write C# or VBNet code that allows you to identify anagrams, how will you go about doing that?
Anagrams?
Yes.
The anagrams, does that mean like it's the same forward, the same backwards, that anagram?
No, that's a palindrome. So an anagram simply means you can rearrange the words in any way you want. And then
you will spell a different word?
Yeah, you will spell a different word.
I got you, okay.
I mean, if you watch Da Vinci Code, that was one anagram.
I still can't get past chapter 8 on the book.
I see. Okay.
So how would you go to do it, right? Wouldn't you do the brute force way?
So a possible brute force way, right, is that you could sort the let's say given a string, you could sort the characters. And then if all characters, removing all the space and additional stuff, if all the characters are in sorted lexicographically are the same, then they must belong to the same root form. Let me show you how to do this using LINQ.
Really? Okay, now this is going to be interesting.
So the first thing that we're going to do here is, again, we have our standard program. It's a console-based program. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is let me just pull in some auxiliary methods that will help me with this.
No problem.
So one of them is called the anagram equality comparer, which I'll explain later. Okay. And at the same time, let me try to... Okay, what do I want? Let me specify some words. Okay, and what are the possible words that we can have? Let's say we have several words here. If you look at the screen, you have basically, darling, I love you.
Dude, aren't you married?
Yes, I am.
Oh, why are you saying that to me, dude?
No.
If your wife sees this video, this is going to be bad news, right?
Darling as in a placeholder.
Sure. It's okay. Yeah, right.
Okay. So you're leaving your either.
Right.
You have Tom Cruise.
And
you have So I'm Cuter, for example.
Okay.
So one of the things that we are going to do, as I described earlier, we need to somehow sort the string. Okay. So what this anagram equality comparer is basically trying to tell you that given two strings, after I do the sorting of the characters in the string, whether they are equal, and then that will be used as a basis for comparisons.
So you obviously will sort and you...
Yes. On top of this, what I'll do is I will replace... I need to replace all the empty spaces with nothing. So that things that have more empty spaces.
Gotcha.
And at the same time, I will want to change this to upper. Before I convert it to a character array.
So you basically outcase everything and replacing all the space.
That's correct. At this point in time, this is just pure C# code. There's nothing impressive about this. And after which we sort the array of characters, and then I just return a new string. So right now we have several anagrams, or they look like anagrams. We don't know whether they are yet. So essentially, what we want to do with this string array is we want to sort them. And somehow group them so that the same anagrams with the same root form are together. Previously, if you were to write C# code, that might take some time. You need some design some algorithms in order to do that. Let's see how we can do it easily using LINQ. Okay. So again, we have an array of strings. We do our familiar var q. We can call anything. So maybe let's just call it q. Okay. And what we really want to do is again from. Okay. Okay. Maybe we don't use the from syntax. Let's suppose we use anagrams. And then we use group by. And what we really want to pass in the group by is to group by s. Dot. Okay. So this is a lambda expression. Let's suppose I want to trim this. Okay. And let me see. How should I go about doing this? Okay. And if you take a look at the syntax of this group by expression, after passing in the whatever I want to, this is basically the to be evaluated. Okay. If you look at the right hand side, it's saying that okay, you want me to do a group by. Tell me how do you determine whether two strings itself is equal. Okay. So right now, if you realize, we have already done an anagram equality comparer. So let's just new anagram equality comparer. Okay. Okay, so far so good.
So that makes sense.
So essentially what we are doing here is that we do a trim, we don't do a trim. The reason why we do a trim is because we're doing this. But suppose, let's assume that all of this have no, since we're already removing the empty spaces, we don't really need the trim. So this lambda expression can be simply S implies S.
Your anagram equality comparer takes away all the spaces anyway.
So I could.
So do you need to
I could remove that. So this is just a LINQ query. And I'm done. I have. So all I need now is to display the results. So again, I do my for each.
I gotcha.
Okay. Say items.
So the equality comparer, in this case, you're actually looking at the value of the thing. But you do site processing, removing the spaces, uppercasing them, and doing the character. So you can do all kinds of stuff. You can even do words like it sounds like, or whatever the case might be.
Yes, you could do that. And the interesting thing about this section of the code that you see here is that when you do a var q equals anagrams group by, it's a very simple, innocent looking expression. This will be expanded, and for each pairs of strings here, or rather for each string, they will do the comparison. In fact, this will...
The first one will compare against the other three, the second one will compare against the other three.
And so on and so forth.
So then like the big O, whatever it's called, is actually pretty big. Okay, it looks like it's one string, you see no for loops or whatever, but it's actually doing a lot of stuff.
But if you think about it, previously while we were querying a database, when you do a group by, underneath the query execution engine, whether it's SQL Server or some other products, we have been doing all this for you. Right now, because we're building query into a language, which is what LINQ is, we just do it with one line. It's so much more simple.
That's interesting. So just, I know one of the visions that all of the .NET people are going towards is that one day you'll be able to simply write what you're trying to do and not spend so much telling it how to do it. So this is definitely a great step in that direction because you don't have to sit there and explain to it, this is how you do the analysis. Just do it.
So if you think about it, it's like a higher level of abstraction and the semantics is simpler to understand. You specify exactly what you want to do and then let the underlying framework, in this case is Project LINQ, to take care of all the generation of whatever you need to do.
I gotcha.
So once this returns, since this is not going to return a string because this is group by. So every time you have group by, you can imagine that there's sort of a key, and then for each of this key, there are several values that are equal. So and since we're declaring a local variable called q here, essentially q now is no longer a string. Like previously, we did the integer array. So essentially, what q is, it will return what we call I grouping, which is also an interface. Okay, and in this I grouping, we have two strings. One of them is the key, and the other one is the series of strings that belongs to this group. So let's call this item in Q. Okay. Let me shift this a bit so you can see it. Okay. So right now, let me just write out the keys. Okay. And again, we do our familiar console.write line, and you have item dot key. Okay, let's just run this just to see what it looks like. Okay, and when I run this, you will see that the root, after it's sorted, these are the keys that is These are the grouping groups.
Okay.
Or rather the groups.
Okay.
So let's now see which are the things that falls into each of this group.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have the key. The next thing is we do a nested loop.
Yeah.
And now we have another for each.
Yeah.
And what do? We say for each of the anagram, maybe var anagram string in your item.
Yeah.
So each one of these will be those that belongs to the same group.
I gotcha.
Okay, and we can do a console.write line.
And you're doing for each var because you don't really care what's in there.
Again, we're using a local variable.
I gotcha.
In this case, since each one of these will be a string, this will be equivalent. This var can be replaced by a string.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah. So it will know what's in there. That way.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. And the reason why you need this is because now you're working with queries within the language.
Okay.
Sometimes you need not necessarily know the type.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why you make use of it.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. And once you have this, you can just print out your ANA string. Okay. And you'll see interesting results from all these string arrays. Okay, once I run this, let me just leave a space so that the groups are clearer.
Okay.
Okay, and once I run this, you'll realize that "darling, I love you" is as good as saying "living" or "either." They are the anagrams.
Okay.
Or you could say "Tom Cruise" also equals to "so I'm cuter."
Yeah, okay.
So that's interesting.
I hope you didn't spend all that time looking this up.
Oh, no, you can always search the internet.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, I know you like Tom Cruise.
Yes. Okay.
Well, that's actually really cool.
Yeah. And right now, what we have seen is just LINQ itself. We have not seen D-LINQ, and in this discussion, we're not going to talk about X-LINQ. Okay. But later on, I'll show you D-LINQ.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool.
Okay, or maybe let's just move into it.
Yeah, okay, let's take a look at it right now.
Okay. In order to do D-LINQ, let me just remove this and leave the console.write line. Okay. Okay. Let's imagine, and let me remove the comparator. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's just imagine right now, you're going to define a class. Okay. Okay. And this class that I'm going to define, basically is a class that describes the COE prices in Singapore. Okay. Okay. And I'm going to do that soon. Okay. What is the COE first of all? Okay. In Singapore, every time you buy a car, you need to bid for this thing called the certificate of entitlement. Okay. And basically, it gives you the right to buy the car, kind of idea. That's right, to buy the car. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And you pay, and the prices fluctuates over the years and over the months. Okay. It's a supply and demand kind of thing. So more people who wants to buy the COEs. Okay, I got you. So once, what we're going to do here is that I have prepared a very small database of COE prices for the past 3 years. Okay. Okay, and what we want to do now is we want to retain the language, let's say in this case C#. Yeah. I'm going to define a class that describes a business entity called COE price. Okay. Okay, and I'm going to show you how we can query this COE price, where the values, the individual values in this COE price is really put from a database. Okay. And essentially that will demonstrate the power of D-LINQ. Okay. 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 So let me just walk you through the underlying database. All right. Okay. If we open my management studio, let me just close the security. You will find that within here, I have a playground. And in this playground, I have COE prices. Okay. Okay, and when I open it, essentially you'll see here the price, the COE price. Ignore the time index. Okay. Or if you want the time index really mean the month. Okay. So you have January to December. Holy moly, it costs $19,000 to get a COE? Previously it's more expensive than that. Even more? Well, look at that. Some of the values get to $28,000? Yes, and there are years, in some of the years, it dropped as low as 50 because at that point in time, somehow there was no demand or something like that. And this basically shows you the year 2005, the year 2004, and 2003. Wow, 31. Yeah, folks. For those of you who don't live in Singapore, you can tell driving a car in Singapore is actually quite expensive. Oh, it is, yeah. And that's why most of us don't own a car. Yeah, I don't own a car. So essentially this is COE prices, which you can download off some of the websites. Okay, gotcha. And we're going to do a demo on D-LINQ that shows you how to first define a class, and then let the class take on different values from this without going through a data set or things like that. Things that you're familiar with. Okay, got it. Okay, so let's go back to Visual Studio. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define a class called COE price. Okay. Okay. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to specify that this COE price has some fields.
Okay.
Okay, and let me just pull the fields in. Okay, so this is essentially what you saw in the database table. Okay. You could have a subset of it. Okay. It doesn't really matter. Okay. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is, this is basically a normal class definition. Okay. With your data members. At the same time, you could also have your methods below if you like. Okay. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to decorate this class with additional attributes. Okay. To indicate that where the data is going to come from. Okay. Okay. And how we're going to go about doing that? First, we use our standard decorators. Okay. Okay. Let me say that this table. Okay. And where is this going to come from? This is going to come from name, COE prices. Okay, right now if you notice, I have only specified the table name. Okay. I've not specified which database I'm going to put from. Okay. As far as BLINQ is concerned, with respect to this, which database it's going to come from will be defined by what we call a database context or data context. Okay. Okay. What we want is, once we define the context, we assume that this context will have this series of tables. Okay. Yeah, and of course, if it doesn't have the tables, it'll give you an exception.
I gotcha. So then later on, you'll be defining. Okay, so you're more defining the relationship than anything else, right now?
Yes, okay, that's correct. So the next thing I'm going to do here is, for each of these data members that I have here, or fields or attributes, whatever you call it. Yeah. Let me again decorate it with attributes. Okay. Okay. So how am I going to do that? I'll say column. So this is a column. Okay. And I want to specify that this particular column. Yeah. The type within the database is really a float or integer. Okay. So let me just say a DB type equals to float, for example. All right. Okay. And similarly, let me copy and paste this.
Don't you actually need to specify which column it's coming from?
Right now, because the column names, right, that you see here, is really same as the whatever you see in the database.
So it's implicit. If it's the same, it'll be the same. If you want to call something different, it'll be different.
Yeah, you could also specify that this particular field really comes from this column.
I gotcha.
So right now I'm just using the default.
Okay. Now, can I also do processing if I want to go through maybe for time year, I want to convert it over to 2 digits instead of 4-digit ones? These are direct one-to-one mappings. You can't do a little processing before you do.
Yes, you could. You could.
Okay.
Yes, you could. Yes. Okay. And then I have in, and I have region, and here essentially this is a bar chart 50. Okay. 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 So now this is just a normal class. Okay. Just that we decorate with some.
You decorate it with LINQ-related stuff.
Yes,
right?
That's correct. Right. Okay. So now with this, the next thing that we're going to do is we have to define a context. Remember, we said that yes, we know that this is going to come from a table called COE prices, which is what you see here. Okay. Okay. But which database is it going to come from? There are several databases within SQL Server, right? Okay. So first, we're going to define a data context. Okay. Okay. And let me just call this context. Okay. And in this context, first I new the data context. Okay. And what I pass in as the argument to this data context is basically a connection string. Okay. Okay. In this case, I will drag the connection string over. And essentially, I'm just using integrated security.
Gotcha. And this is the normal stuff that you'd be using with ADO normally. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
And this playground is essentially the playground database that we saw earlier.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay. And this need not necessarily be talking to SQL Server. It could be also talking to SQL Server Express. Okay. In this case, your connection string will be as per what SQL Server Express has. You could, instead of referring to a specific table or a specific database, you could refer to a file, an MDF file, and then SQL Server Express will mount this automatically.
I gotcha.
So it's similar.
It's pretty powerful. Okay.
Yes. But this is connection string that you're used to. Okay. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to specify that we have a table, and this table is a table of COE price. See that we're using generics here.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay. And in this table, let's call this table of price. Yep. It's basically, where is this table going to come from? Yeah. It's going to come from the context. Okay. Context refers to the database that we are pulling the data from. Okay. And I can get a table. Yeah. And what do I get? I get the table of COE price. Okay. 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 Gotcha. And how does it know that this COE price you really want to pull from a table called COE prices? Right. if you take a look at the what we decorate earlier, it comes from COE price.
Gotcha.
So it all flows in, right?
Okay.
So once we have all this all set up,
Yep.
Essentially we can do our queries that you saw that when we use the same query expression to query a collection.
Yeah.
Now we're going to use this to query a database.
Because this also implements the IEnumeral interface, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It need not necessarily implement the IEnumeral interface.
Okay.
In this case here, we are not really relying on the IEnumeral interface.
Okay.
We are just relying on the functionalities that's provided by LINQ or DLINQ.
Okay, that makes sense. So the idea, because the very first demo you showed was the fact that as long as that data structure, whatever it is, that object is either IEnumerable or whatever follows the LINQ interfaces, right?
Yes.
You can go through and search it.
Yes.
As if it was like a SQL database. So in this case, you've defined all the stuff on the top, and on the bottom, okay, that makes sense. And you just search it like a normal thing, like you did below. Okay.
Okay. Now the next thing that we're going to do our familiar var queue.
Okay.
So here again, we're going to query. So remember the query syntax. We don't start from. No, we don't start from select.
Yeah.
So we stay from s.
Okay.
In table price.
Okay.
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 Again, we can say where s.
Yeah.
Dot. In this case, the COE price.
Yeah.
Maybe we're interested in all those that are greater than 20,000.
Okay.
20,000.
Okay.
What do we select? So here I'm going to show you a new syntax.
Okay.
It's a language feature that's been introduced in C# 3.0.
Okay.
If you know, in C# 2.0, you have heard of things like anonymous methods. Okay. Previously, you couldn't do anonymous types.
Okay.
Meaning that you create the type on the fly and let the compiler generate the necessary classes for you.
Okay.
In C# 3.0, we are running the CTP here.
Okay.
It will allow you to do anonymous types.
Okay.
Okay. And what we're going to do, we're going to do a new.
Yeah.
Take note that now we are not newing any objects.
Okay. So you're not specifying the object you're newing.
So I'm going to specify now.
Okay.
This is the shape of the object we are newing.
Okay.
Which is anonymous.
Okay.
Okay. So in this case, I'm interested in as.coe price, and I'm interested in as.maybe time year.
Okay.
Or maybe the time index.
Okay.
Just go on. So I have a COE price, the time index.
Okay.
Okay, and I close curly, and I'm done.
Okay. So you're not saying you're not defining what that particular object is, you just define what the structure of the object is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So once with this structure of the object, the beauty of this is that when this query gets executed, what will happen is that the shape of this queue again will be taken from here.
Okay.
And how does it know that COE price?
Don't point at the screen because they can't see you. So you use your mouse. Use your mouse.
Sure. Okay.
I made the same mistake. Okay.
Okay.
Which one were you pointing at again?
It's fine. It's fine. Okay. So once we have this, let's run. So we do a for each item in. Remember, there's a var item in queue.
I gotcha. Because I got you. You don't need to name it because it doesn't matter because it's already in there. The bar allows you to get to it. Okay.
And if you realize, we're using the same query language across whether it's arrays or whether it's databases. We don't have to keep relearning new stuff. Okay. So now I can again do a console.write line. Okay. I can do a 0. I can do a 1.
Okay, to elaborate on that point, right?
Yes.
You're saying you can use this to search pretty much anything here, like a memory, right? Like an object memory, right?
And it's really pulling the data from the database.
Right. Oh, you could be pulling from database, and you can use the exact same query to actually pull data from XML in the future.
Yeah, that's correct.
Gotcha.
So now you see we have all those that is above 20,000. So again, we could even say if we're not happy with this, since this is SQL-like syntax, we could do order by S. Maybe COE price.
I gotcha.
So let me restrict maybe 25,000, so it's easier to see.
Okay.
And when I run this, you see all ordered.
Yeah.
And these are the ones. Yeah.
I gotcha.
And
without quite nice.
without using data sets or stuff.
Now, you were saying though before that later on you'll be able to hit like for example here you're pointing out here, right? When you hit S dot COE price, you had to type that out manually. But you're saying when this gets done, it should give you the IntelliSense capability.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because since you know here that from S is in table price, and table price is really taking from is a table of COE price,
right?
Which again is a class. So based on this, there will be IntelliSense should be able to infer that the
Once this gets released, it will be able to defer all this.
Yes, COE
okay.
points and
Let me ask you this here, right? You having to write all this stuff out, all this stuff right out. This looks like the perfect thing to be auto-generated.
Oh yes, it will. It will be auto-generated.
So you simply right-click on the database, right, and you say, on this table, I want you to go and expose it.
Yeah, okay. Ideally, in the long run, you can right-click on the database and you can generate this out.
Right.
In fact, you realize that if you were to, you realize that right now when we type this, the syntax still looks simple. But if you're looking at production database, the fields could be like much more.
Yes.
Not only that, the fields itself could have primary keys as well as foreign key constraints. And you have indexes built on it and stuff like that. And if you follow the whatever hands-on labs that is provided for D-LINQ, you'll realize that in order to resolve all these primary key, foreign key relationships, the declaration for each of the attributes is not so simple. It's much more complicated. On top of this, you have, for example, fields in a database that's auto-generated, your identity columns. That has to be taken care of in a special way. And so on and so forth, and the list goes on, right? So as a person or as a developer, there's no way you could write this from scratch, right? So yeah, you're right. In the long run, ideally, right, I can right-click. But right now, in the main CTP, you can't right-click it. But what you can do is that you can make use of this command line utility called SQL method, which will generate it for you, which I'm going to show you.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
You show me now?
Yes.
Okay, let's take a look.
So, as I said, we can't right-click. So let's just open the command prompt. This is not the right command prompt. Okay. So there's this tool called SQL method. This is provided together the main CTP. When you press SQL method, you will realize that essentially it allows you to point to whichever database server you have. Specify the database. Specify the user.
Everything you need to connect to it.
Yes, that's correct. And at the end of the day, it will generate the necessary files for you.
I gotcha. It's all in C# or it's ready to go.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. So let me show you. Let's use the standard database. In this case, let's look at the Northwind database. Let me see whether I have Northwind here. No. Okay, I have Northwind loaded within my SQL Express. And this is a standard Northwind database that most of us are used to. And the standard tables. So I'm going to make use of this tool, SQL method, to generate the code for the entire Northwind database, taking care of the foreign key, primary key kind of relationships. At the same time, also the identity columns and stuff like that.
That makes sense.
And how do I go about doing that? I will run SQL method. I specify a server. In this case, you realize I'm pulling from my.
Server is period means local server.
No, it's a bit big. So I'm pulling it from SQL Express.
So local server SQL Express instance, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And then it's pulling from. Let me do it the other way. Since the prompt is too long. From here you can see better.
There we go.
So you specify the server. Right now I'm using the name instance, which is SQL Express. The database is Northwind. Slash pluralize means simply to say that if the fields needs to be pluralized, for example, if there's space in between, you want to join them together, or if they have different root forms, you want to resolve them, you will use the slash pluralize. Basically, it makes your code generated, the fields to look nicer.
I gotcha.
And then after which, oops, it's still too long.
Okay, put it in Notepad maybe?
Let me pull this down. Wait, I'll explain it along the way.
No problem.
So what we have done here is we have connected to the SQL Express. And specifically to the Northwind database. Extract all this out. And generated the code that looks something like this.
I gotcha. And you can just be able to create a class.
That's correct.
And you just dump it all in there.
That's correct. And on top of this, because by using SQL method, if I scroll from left to right,
you specify a namespace.
I specify a namespace. In this case, it's Northwind.
I gotcha.
And the code is going to be put in a file called northwind.cs.
Makes sense.
And since I'm generated in my D drive root, we'll be able to see the file there. So let me open this. If I open this file, I go to my D drive root, I'll see a northwind.cs.
Yep.
And you'll see that this code was generated by a tool.
I got you.
There's a namespace northwind, which is specified earlier.
I got you.
And take a look at this. This is a partial class.
Yep.
And what does it inherit from? It inherits from the data context.
Okay.
Which means to say, once we have this, we don't have to define the data context per se. We can just new northwind. Okay. And it will be strongly typed. So in D-LINQ itself, what we saw earlier, this is not strongly typed. Okay. Okay. But by using a tool to generate, and letting this class inherit from the data context, it will be strongly typed. And you realize all the tables we have done earlier, orders, product, order, detail.
I gotcha. And then the contents of the
in the constructor for northwind, basically it's specified a connection string, which I'll show you how we can use later. Okay. And at the same time, see all the decorators? Yep. Okay. On top of this, it has taken care of things like your entity set. Okay. This is basically handling all your references, your foreign key references. Okay. Okay. At the same time, if you look at this, the attributes or the decorators looks even more complex. Now here it's trying to say that the storage is order ID. What this is trying to say is that if you look at the syntax for this, this is really a property. Yeah. Okay. What this is trying to say is if I want to access the order ID, just to get the value, I don't go through the property, which could have additional codes like this. Yeah. Okay. I will go directly to this attribute called underscore order ID. Okay. Which if you look above, you should be able to find. See? Access it directly in order to get the values. Okay. But if I need to make use of the mutators, and I will bypass this and make use of the mutators which have additional constraints checks.
I gotcha. So this is just like the whole properties in .NET languages, but it's extended to doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's correct.
So this is what you and I were just talking about. How can I massage the data just slightly before I actually consume it? And this is how I do it.
Yes, that's correct. Makes sense. At the same time, if you look at the decorators, autogen is true. This simply means this is an identity column. And ID is true because it's an identity column.
So those attributes for the specific type of columns are now stored here. Okay.
Okay.
So, all right, so I'm confused here, right? If all this can be auto-generated, why did not just simply build all this directly into the language, into LINQ? But why bother having this middle layer? Are you saying that is there an instance where maybe it's usually a data person on the project?
Yes.
So I'm assuming that if you were using LINQ on a project, right, the data guy will sit there, define what the database is going to look like, run this tool, generate this, and check this into your project code.
True, true. Right? But then there could still be customized codes that you want to work on, which...
Like the massagers, you call it mutators, right?
No, the mutators are simply all your get sets that allows you to change the values.
So but here you can get fancy in here too, couldn't you?
Yes, yes.
Like so given order date, I want to switch it to
like previously you mentioned you wanted some transformation. Right. This is where you do it.
I got you. Yes, I got you. So that's why it's not built in the language because you need to you have the opportunity to extend it.
Yes, the language itself will provide you the primitive to do all this.
I got you.
To do your queries and stuff like that. But this is really outside the language. Okay. It's basically saying that after you have built this, I can allow you to query in a unified way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay.
Okay, so we will close this. Okay, I'm going to show you how we can make use of this strongly typed. Just now what we did was not strongly typed. So let me open one of the demos.
Hey, it's 5:30 already. You have a plane to catch down, don't you?
Oh, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Let me open this. Let me see whether this is it. Okay, this is Northwind. But this is using data context. Okay. Now, if you look at this set of code here, I'm just going to run query 2. Okay. Okay, and let's take a look at what query 2 is. Okay. Just now assume that we have already generated the Northwind class, which you can find here. Yeah. This is I pre-generated it. Yeah. Okay. Essentially, this is again generated by a tool, the same code. Okay. Okay. If you look at this program, now we no longer have a data context. Okay. Remember, Northwind really inherits from the data context.
That's what you're saying. You don't need to pass the data context in. You can actually go, okay, I got you.
And right now, previously the connection string that you pass to the data context, right now you pass it via this because this inherits from data.
I gotcha. But don't you still need to specify who's the username and whatnot to log in?
Sorry?
Like how do you connect? Connection string is not just the MDF files.
Yes, that's correct. But in this case, because this is a dynamically mounted thing.
So all that information is stored in the class?
Yes.
I gotcha.
Okay.
In the Northwind class, okay.
And
I gotcha.
What is the beauty of a strongly typed kind of, if you make use of strongly typed way of accessing data. If you take a look at this, I can now say db dot customers and see IntelliSense.
Nice. That's very nice. That's
Previously, with non-strongly typed, I will have to go and ask the context to get the table, and you realize IntelliSense doesn't come in.
I gotcha.
On top of this, if you see from C, I can say where C. Okay, eventually you will work.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Well, this is actually pretty powerful, but it also means that the data architects got to make sure they get it right the first time, because when they publish these definitions and people start using them in the project, they can't go back and start changing things around.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Now, on top of this, right, as I said, essentially what LINQ or LINQ to SQL does is that it provides you with a higher level kind of semantics in which you work with. Essentially, when it talks to a relational database like SQL Server, it will definitely still have to translate to SQL. Okay. So let me just run query 2. In this case, query 2 basically looks for the table customers within the Northwind database. Okay, and then trying to say finding all in which the city is London, and then outputting it. Okay. Let me just run this. This is query 2, and we are running query 2. When I run this, you'll see that London, and these are the other stuff that is inside. Okay, let's just take a look at what these are. This is basically a customer ID and the company name.
Okay, so you basically look through all the people.
So these are basically customers whose company is in London. So, okay, now this is, so right now we have query, which we express in the language, in this case is C#. We have the output. So the intermediate part is missing, right? LINQ itself will generate the SQL for it. That's why it's called LINQ to SQL.
I gotcha.
Okay, and how does it do that? We can actually observe. So what we're going to do is, let me just close this. Okay, in order to do that, I'm going to redirect the DB log. DB refers to this Northwind data context. The log, and assign it to console out. So it's like connecting the pipes together. Okay, and when I run this,
you can see where it's processing.
you will see that the SQL that's generated is on top. And this is the SQL generated from LINQ, which is the query within the language. Okay, to SQL. And this SQL hits the database. This gets returned, and it gets printed out via this, which is bounded at runtime.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
Okay, and of course they are still working in sorting this SQL. Some of the SQL generated is not really SQL that I expect. For example, let's look at one more query. In this case, what do we want to do? Let me see. Okay, in this case, what we really want to do is we want to find customers who have placed orders. Okay, we're pulling it from the same Northwind context. Okay, and at the same time, I want to count how many orders. So imagine this is basically an aggregation query. You have to write SQL to do that. Right now, because I express this here, see the orders any. Okay, select C. And once I have this, I do a count. Okay. Let me change this to query 3. So we're going to run query 3. Let's just run it without the log first. Okay, and essentially what it's going to show you is basically all these are the IDs, and these are the number of orders. Okay, let's see what is the SQL generated. Okay.
So you're looking at the SQL that was used to actually execute to get that result?
Yes. So right now this is basically our LINQ expression. Or LINQ, I keep saying LINQ expression. Okay, and again, remember we can redirect the log to the console out, which will output it. When I run this, for each of the lines that you see there earlier and the count, there will be a corresponding SQL generated. Can you see that?
I see that.
So if I scroll up,
because you're right, because each one of those things required a.
This gave you a ID equals A route, quantity 13. And this is the corresponding SQL that was generated.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
So I mean, if you look at this, there's some optimization that you can do. Since some of this might share similar expressions, you need not necessarily do individual count queries for it.
I gotcha. I gotcha. So it's not perfectly optimized, but I mean, it gets the job done.
That's
so I guess if it's a bigger database you're crawling through, then you want to make it as optimized as possible.
That's correct.
I gotcha.
So we have seen D-LINQ. The final demo that I'm going to show you is this. One of the things that some of you might have heard of is that there is this framework called Ruby on Rails.
Okay.
Seems to be quite popular because it provides you with the ability to model, and from the model generate code, which will give you an initial set of web application or web pages, which is based on Ruby, and after which you can modify it you can extend it to become whatever customized application that you want it to do.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about it, if you are working with LINQ, LINQ allows you to specify queries within the language. Okay, how nice would it be, right, if I could make use of a tool to say, point it to a database and say that this is a database, help me generate the initial set of forms, ASP.NET forms, and make use of these forms as a startup point for me to build my other application. So a common application could be, if you think about a database like Evangelist, you would want to say, besides using maybe the management studio to add new data and stuff like that, you want to have a web interface to do it. Okay. Or you already have an existing production database. Okay. You just want to provide your clients with some functionality on the web.
You can obviously control, it's not expose the whole thing. You can just say, I only want to expose a small.
Yes, that's correct. And that serves as a starting point. In fact, you'll cut down a lot of your development effort.
So, it creates all that for you, but you can go to start removing things.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay. And the beauty of this is that it allows you, the code that it generates, instead of using your standard data sets and stuff like that, it's entirely based on LINQ. Remember the D-Link stuff that we saw earlier? Yes. Okay. So this is what I'm going to show you. Okay. The tool that I'm going to use, which I will pass you the URL, is really called BLINQ. Okay. It has nothing to do with the LINQ family. Yeah. It's called BLINQ for whatever reason. Okay. So let me show you the tool. Okay. And once you install BLINQ, you will find that within your ASP.NET directory, you have a BLINQ. Okay. And when you try to run the tool BLINQ, you will see that essentially BLINQ again asks you to specify a database, what server is it, what's the authentication, and the virtual directory in which you want to deploy this.
I gotcha. The web app. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So let me just run again. How should I? Okay. Let me just run BLINQ. If you look at this, I'm basically saying BLINQ, my server. In this case, it's called Altis. Okay. That's my dream car. Okay. I'm pointing to a database called AdventureWorks. Yeah. This is the standard AdventureWorks that we're used to. Yeah. In this case, user is demo user. Yeah. Password is a stupid password.
Yeah, I gotta love that password.
Okay. I got quite a password. Okay. And the final virtual directory is at AdventureWorks demo. Okay. So you have to have IS installed, I guess, right? Yes, that's correct. Okay, and this is where the virtual directory is going to be, my site. Let me just put it to AdventureWorks, for example. Okay, I gotcha. Okay, and the moment when I press enter, what it does is that it's going to look at the AdventureWorks database, look at all the tables that it has, generate all the D-Link stuff that you saw earlier, and then create the web forms, which makes use of the stuff, and presto, you have your web app up and running. So when I press enter, and it has finished generation. Right now we're accessing the website. See, you have AdventureWorks, and these are all your tables in AdventureWorks.
So dynamically create all this stuff, and those are all the tables now. Okay.
Yes, and there are themes and skins that you can make use of.
So all the back-end code's already in there. Yes. You just strip out what you don't want.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay. If I'm not wrong, the code that generates ASP.NET 2.0 code. Okay. Yeah, and suppose I want to edit one of this. Yeah. And I click on this. See, I can do in-place editing. Think about how long it will take for you to write just a basic application just to do that. And from here, you can start customizing.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty nice. So it actually saves you a lot of time.
Yes.
Just make sure you actually remove all the stuff you don't want people touching.
But I guess BLINQ itself is still a beta tool.
Yeah.
You still need a lot of customization more to go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, hey, look. I mean, this is actually pretty cool. So let's recap, right? We talked about what LINQ is,
yes,
right? We talked about how it can how the format, the syntax is actually go through search things, right? You also talked about how LINQ can actually go attach things like XML and databases. The database called BLINQ, while XLINQ is the one for XML.
Yes.
So you also showed us a demo of how to do DLINQ, how to connect to that, right?
Right now, DLINQ, the name is really called LINQ to SQL. DLINQ was the old code name.
Okay.
And XLINQ, the name now is called LINQ to XML.
Okay.
Yeah.
So databases, you showed us the format, you also showed us how it can connect to different things, the language can connect to different things, right? You also showed us this BLINQ thing, right? That shows you how to connect to all this, how to auto-generate all this stuff.
Yes.
And it's all ASP.NET 2.0 code, right? But it's all based on
LINQ. Yes.
LINQ to SQL code.
Yes.
Okay, that's actually pretty cool. Okay, you're also going to give us the URL for the Channel 9 guy, plus also, so how, I guess to recap, how did you actually get all this going? This is just Visual Studio 2005.
Yes, that's correct.
Would it work with Express, do you know?
Not that I know of. Yeah.
Okay, so Visual Studio 2005, you download the
MaceCTP. Yes, that's
right?
correct.
But you also said .NET 3.0 because you showed the...
Oh, yes. So in fact, what will happen is that after you have Visual Studio 2005, and after you install the LINQ MaceCTP, let me show you what will happen when you start up the project, which we didn't really go through.
Okay.
The moment you start Visual Studio 2005, okay, and when you do a new, and you do a project, you will realize that within here, whether it's Visual Basic or C#, there will be a new template called LINQ, and you can create a console application. Suppose I were to create a console application. Okay. And I click OK. One of the first things you'll realize that it's going to tell you that this is an unsupported version because we're really using C# 3.0.
Okay, so when you install LINQ 3.0, automatically gets installed?
Yes. When you install LINQ 3.0, and in fact Visual Basic 9 gets installed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can just ignore the message.
Okay. No problem. That makes sense.
On top of this, you can it also provides you with a lot of demos. What we've seen earlier are customized demos. But there is also a set of standard demos that you can make use of. Once you install this, you'll find that you have a LINQ preview. And over here, you have all your hands-on labs, step-by-step instructions. In addition, you have C# samples as well as Visual Basic 9 samples.
Okay, cool. Then we'll make sure when we publish the video, we include all these things.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, dude, you better get going. You got an 8 o'clock flight, so in this middle of traffic. Well, listen, I want to thank Wee Hyong for actually coming out here and helping us out with this, and showing us all the stuff with LINQ, right? So you're going to come back and show us some other stuff about how to do XLINQ or LINQ to XML in the future?
Sure.
Okay. XML has been something that I use a lot of, so definitely I can see a lot of use for that. So, hey, look, best of luck. You're going to Malaysia now, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, safe travels.
Thank you.
Okay. You have a blog?
Yes, I have.
Okay. In a second, on the bottom of the screen, you will also see a blog to Wee Hyong's blog website, okay? So, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Take care.